they circled the problem. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Richard out here at IVCC, Illinois Valley Community College. So for those of you that are tuning in that are not part of my student group, I'm glad to have you. For my guys, good to see you again. Obviously, it's a little bit less personal due to the current circumstances. This video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be doing a wheel bearing on the driver's side of this 2012 Nissan Maxima. I've got you guys strapped to some magnets and a post here. So you're a little adjustable and hopefully it'll work out. Maybe, let's see. So, as always, figured we could start off with a couple of jokes. You know, I was going to tell you some coronavirus jokes, but figured we'd have to wait 2 weeks to see if you get it. So I was like, do we have that kind of time? Wait 2 weeks to see if you get it? Ha 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 ha. I know, the puns, it's so terrible. It's a pandemic. All right, we're done. So, today, like I said, we are going to be doing the wheel bearing on this 2012 Maxima. So what I have in my hand is the new part. We've got a Moog bearing here. If you guys remember from class, we have several different types of wheel bearings. I took this car for a ride earlier, customer complaint, sounds like a they actually wrote me a letter that said, sounds like a B-52 bomber taking off while going down the road, and sure enough, it sure does. So, went down the road, did our back and forth shake test, and yep, was able to figure out that it is the driver's side bearing. So, ordered me up a bearing. If you guys look, hopefully you'll be able to identify this guy right off the bat, but I'll tell you, this is an integral hub bearing assembly, okay? So the bearing is on the inside here. We have two sets of roller bearings on the inside. Obviously, we can't see them. This is a front wheel drive vehicle, so we have splines on the inside for the CV shaft to go through, and we have these little slots cut in the back, depending on how you mount this, right? It is for our ABS sensor to sit in. And if you actually look on the inside, I don't know if you can see that, but on the inside here is actually a little brown ring. That brown ring actually has little segments in it that as that ABS sensor goes past it, it picks it up, creates a magnetic field, picks it up, and it's able to tell the wheel speed off of that. So we're going to use, the computer will use that input to be able to figure out how fast the wheel is going, and also during a stop, if it sees that this specific wheel locked up, say we're on ice and now the tire has no traction, it would be able to activate the ABS and unlock said wheel. So, obviously, we're going to have a procedure to go through here. I'm going to take my tripod, my homemade tripod. So we're going to have to take off the wheel. Once I get the wheel off, we'll go through, we'll take off the caliper, take off the caliper bracket, pull off the brakes, and then behind that is actually going to be the wheel, or the wheel bearing, hub assembly, right? So we'll have to pull off the center nut for the wheel bearing. Sorry, I can't multitask, so I'm not even gonna try it. There we go, a little better, yeah. So we're gonna have to take off this big giant center nut to be able to push that CV shaft out. We'll have 4 bolts on the back of this hub that will actually attach it to our steering knuckle, right? Those 4 right there, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's get busting. Alright, so now this tire's off, I'll get you in here a little bit. So you can see right here we have our caliper, brake pads on the inside, caliper bracket, our rotor. Behind that we have our dust shield, and then I'll bring you guys back here. We're going to have a couple of bolts for the caliper bracket. We're going to take off our caliper right here, 1, 2, take off our bracket, 1, 2. We've got a big nut right in the center here for the CV shaft that you can see goes through the back, right? Actually connects up into the transmission. And then on the inside of that, once we get the CV shaft out, if I can get my light in here, you can see this little bolt right down here. You guys can see that. That bolt right there, there's 4 of them. 1, 2 on bottom, 2 on top. All right, so we'll actually have to push that CV shaft in a little bit to be able to get those top bolts. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video and I'll bring you guys back in once I get the caliper off. All right. Oh man, I'm really tired after doing all that work. I know, it's terrible. I'm sorry, it's terrible. All right, guys, so you can see, right? I have the caliper bracket hung up on the strut mount here, right? I just use this big old bungee cord, so it is not going to fall. You never ever want to let that caliper hang by this hose right here, because you can actually internally damage that hose, right? And if it drops, say you just hung this caliper up here and didn't secure it properly, if that caliper dropped, right, it could theoretically break that hose, right? Which would mean another part to replace, and then that's on you, right? Because you broke it in the process, right? Of not like a normal broken bolt where it was unavoidable. That's something that can be avoided, right? So we got our caliper bracket off. We got the caliper bracket sitting right here, right? Mr. Bracket with our brake pads, our return springs, right? Our bolts over there. This is something that I kind of like to do, is just to line my bolts and my parts up on the side arm of the lift, right? So that I know what order they go in. I'm not going to lose them. A lot of people will get magnetic trays, right? I don't have magnetic trays. They're real cheap, especially if you buy them at Harbor Freight, right? So now we've got the caliper out of the way. We've got the rotor off. Rotor's on the floor, right? So now we've got to get this cotter pin out of here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab myself a little pair of pliers here and snip that guy. I'm actually going to set you guys up here so that I can have both my hands while I do this. All right, two-handed effort. So, get my pliers, pull that cotter pin out of there. Cotter pin, right? Number 1 rule about cotter pins, we never reuse them, right? We always get a new cotter pin, okay? We'll just set that off to the side. We're gonna find out of our whatever's in case number 1. Oh, big sockets. Look at that. Excellent sockets, right? So these guys are usually pretty large, so we're going to try maybe a 33. We'll see how that fits. Maybe? Let's try 32. 32 it is. Look at that. Perfect. I bought this kit online. It is a Similec 1/2-inch deluxe kit. Comes in very, very handy. I think I got it on Amazon for like, I couldn't even tell you. It's been a while, maybe like 50 bucks. Get that on our impact, right? There we go. Big nut. All right, so now this should hopefully, and it's supposed to be able to push out, right? But obviously we live in Illinois, and in Illinois things rust, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take that nut and we're just going to put that nut back onto the shaft. You never ever want to hit the end of a shaft like this with a hammer, especially a metal, like a full metal hammer, because what you'll actually do is you'll mushroom the tip, right? You'll deform the end of that spindle. And when you deform the end of the spindle, the threads are off and you'll never be able to get the nut back on, right? So, we're just going to put it on here. Obviously, we're going to be careful not to hit the threads, and hopefully, we'll be able to draw it loose. Sure helps when you put your purse down. So that looks like it's as far as in as I'm going to be able to hit it with the hammer. So what I'm going to have to go do is I'm going to go ahead to get either a 2-jaw puller and be able to push that in, or we have a special tool. I'll bring that right back. All right, so we've got our special tool hooked up here. I'm borrowed from Mr. Arkadelka himself, and you can see that this is actually specifically for pushing out the CV shaft of a wheel bearing, right? So we've got these 3 little arms right here, right? So each one is hooked up to the actual hub by using the original lug nuts, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, and we've got this plate here, and then we've got this spindle right in the center, which actually pushes directly onto the center of our CV axle, right? So if I get this little guy spinning here, I'll just hold it and run it in. You can see that it's going to start pushing that in. We're going to make sure, because we need to get it out all the way so that we have free run. Okay. So we're going to stop there. I'm going to put the video down. I'm going to retake this off, and we're going to start on getting the ABS sensor. All right, so the wheel speed sensor, this little guy right here. I don't know if you can see it. We'll get the light. That little sensor right there with the 1 bolt, 10 mil, needs to come out. All right, so that we don't guillotine it and chop the head of the sensor off as we're trying to take it out, as we're taking out the wheel bearing, because like we saw earlier, it actually sits inside the back of this wheel bearing right there, right in that little notch. All right. So I'll get that out, bring it back.